welcome to Lesson 4, Exploring Two Columns for AP Computer Science Principles. After this lesson, you will be able to create a crosstab and scatter chart in the data visualizer, draw conclusions by reading crosstab and scatter charts, and explain the reasons that someone would create either a crosstab and a scatter chart in order to explore two columns of data. So let's go ahead and get started. Imagine you wanted to know which hour of the day you and your classmates are the happiest. What kind of data would you collect? How do you think you'd analyze it? Pause the video here so you can write this down in your journal and really think about it, and then come back whenever you're ready. So you would definitely need to collect multiple pieces of information about, the time of day and how happy people are. Beyond that, you would have to collect it multiple times a day and also from the same person, but not just the same person. You'd have to collect it multiple times a day from the same people, but a lot of people. So there are a lot of great ideas about how we could do that, and they make for possibly a fascinating analysis. The main thing, though, is that we need at least two different pieces of information: the time of day and how happy people are. That means that we are going to need to start thinking about ways to analyze more than one column of data. And in this lesson, we're going to start looking at two different ways to do that. So we have bar charts and histograms. Bar charts and histograms are only useful for looking at one column of data. And the histograms you should have completed from the previous lesson 2, which would have been homework because we didn't have time to finish it in class. So we're looking at more than one column of data. What do we need? Let me ask you this. How many herding breeds live a maximum of 12 years? What is the most common maximum lifespan for working breeds? Which breed group lives the shortest? Which breed group lives the longest? How do you know? How confident are you in your answers? So, pause the video here so that you can answer these questions. And these are questions that you can submit to Google Classroom. We will have an activity guide, okay? But put them in your journal and you can submit them to Google Classroom as a comment. So a cross-tab chart counts how many times combinations of values appear. Arrows from over here show where that row in the data table would be counted in the chart. So let's answer those questions. 4 herding breeds live a maximum of 12 years. Herding. It's not over here. It's over here. Herding. 4 breeds live a maximum of 12 years. Did you notice that the higher the number, the darker the color? Okay. What is the most common maximum lifespan of working breeds? Working 8. 12 years. Which breed group lives the shortest? Well, working breed groups, or the working breed group seems to live the shortest. You notice how it has nothing? There are no numbers above the age 15. All right. Now, which breed group lives the longest? We have one at 20, one at 16, but one at 16, one at 17, two at 18. So the toy breed group lives the longest. And how do we know? We counted. We looked at the values that were there. Okay. And one thing that I hope that you can see is that the spread of life expectancies for different breed groups is visible here, but it's not cut and dry. It's not as easy to see as we would want. So a crosstab, we mentioned that a moment ago. It counts how often pairs of values in two columns appear. It is useful for finding the most least common combinations of values in two columns, finding patterns across two columns, and exploring two columns when one or both are strings. And notice that it's strings also. So you might want to note in your journal that crosstab is useful for these reasons. Now, it's not useful if either column has too many values, because then the chart would just be like way too big. Okay, so let's watch this video real quick.
Using the data visualizer tool in AppLab, we can also make scatter plots. Scatter plots are useful for answering questions about relationships between variables or attributes in your data set. First, we'll want to choose scatter plot from the drop-down. And let's start with some variables that we've looked at before. And the X values, we'll look at the total percent of female test takers. Now, if I wanted to know about the relationship between the percentage of female CS test takers in a state and the percentage of schools in that state that offer an AP program, I could make this scatter plot. Now, this scatter plot shows along the x-axis the total percent of female test takers, and on the y-axis the percentage of schools in a state that offer an AP program. Each dot represents a particular state. So for example, we can see that this state right here had 38% of the schools in that state offer an AP program, and 29% of the test takers in that state identified as female. By looking at this entire graph, we can see what, if any, relationship exists between these two variables. We can also use the filter tool at the bottom to narrow down our investigation. Let's say we are interested in looking at only states where a large amount of tests were taken. Let's say 2,000. We can choose the appropriate value here, total APCS exams. We can choose greater than or equal to, and then we'll find the first value that's larger than 2,000 here, 2,215. Now this graph still shows the same variables. It's just that we're looking at only the states where there were 2,000 or more CS tests taken. The last type of visual we can make is a crosstab. Crosstabs are useful for looking at data sets that involve some values that are strings instead of numbers. So for this type of visualization, let's look at another data set. This data set comes from the publication The Root and contains information about the 100 most influential African Americans. After we import it, we can look at it here. Let's say we wanted to get a sense of the most common type of people included in this list, maybe with respect to the sector that they're in and their age. We can choose those two variables here for our X and Y values. And now you'll see this table that shows up. Each of these values here in different shades of blue show the frequency at which these different combinations showed up. So for example, we can see here that in this entire data set, 4 of the people on this list are age 39 and work in the community sector. And we can see that that's the most combination out of all the possible combinations in this data set. There are any number of possible questions you can investigate using these visualizations. From understanding the variability in your data set to starting to uncover patterns and relationships in the data, these visualizations will help you gain insight into topics that are of interest to you and are important to you.
So now what I want you to do is get your activity guide. It's digital again because you're going to be making charts and then pasting the charts, okay? So download your activity guide and then come back to the video. So on page 1, fill out the activity guide, make the 2 different cross-tab charts indicated on the sheet, and then answer the questions, okay? If you look at the activity guide, use the words data set. So going to lesson 4 on code.org, data set. I'm going to search. Oh, wait, no, it's already here. Okay, words. Okay. Use length and part of speech. And remember, crosstab. So visualize data. Crosstab, length, and part of speech. Let's give it a title. I'm going to view a snapshot, copy it, and then I'm going to paste it. Am I going to paste it? Yes. Now, it kind of runs off the page, so you might have to change the formatting of your chart to make sure it is all on the page, okay? And then you're going to answer the questions. Oh, wait. This needs to go down one. Okay, there. So, A, and then B. Which part of speech shows up most often in this data set? You're just going to read your chart, okay? Shows up most often in the data set? The one with the most blue, okay? So that would be noun. All right, so go ahead and continue with the activity guide. I'm going to undo everything I did so I don't mess up your copy. All right, and you're going to finish page 1, and then we're going to come back and look at scatter plots. So pause the video here. So when you look at this scatter plot, is there a pattern? How can you tell? Well, later states, well, first of all, this table has a dot for each of the first 48 states. It shows the size of the states in square miles versus the order it was added to the USA. So, later states, this is when it was added, and this is how large it is. So, the first few states were kind of small. And then as states got added, they got larger. Yeah. So how do scatter plots help us? Well, they show combinations of values from two columns. It's useful for seeing patterns and trends between two values and numeric data with lots of different values. And so you're going to want to include this information in your journal relating to scatter plots, scatter charts. All right. It is not useful for lots of repeated values because that's what it would look like. Okay. Very much unhelpful. Now, you're going to go to your activity guide and practice making the scatter charts on page 2. Okay, this is where we are. So pause the video here so that you can do that. And of course, if you need help, please ask someone around you, okay? Pause the video here so you can complete the activity guide, which you will download as a PDF and submit to Google Classroom when you finish. Don't forget to add your name, okay? And then come back here so we can wrap it up, all right? So now that you have finished, okay, we're going to review the key takeaways, all right? We know a lot of different ways to visualize and find patterns now. We collect or choose the data, we clean and or filter it. Sometimes it's already clean. So maybe all we have to do is filter, but sometimes we have to clean it and filter it, or sometimes we just have to clean it. Then we visualize and find patterns, and then we get new information. Okay, that the visualizing helps us find new questions that we need to ask. All right, and pause the video here so you can look at this kind of flow chart to help you decide what type of visualization you need to use. All right, and remember, we can develop insights and knowledge about our world from manipulating and visualizing data, in particular by finding patterns. And when investigating two columns of data, we can observe patterns, different values move together, they are correlated. Don't forget our lesson about correlation versus causation. We cannot know for certain the cause of the correlation. So that ends this lesson, and I want you to also complete the check for understanding on code.org.